Story 1. Honestly, the worst thing I ever heard came from my 11-year-old daughter and her friend. They had a falling out, and when she told me what was said, I was floored. For reference, our 18-year-old cat had been missing outside for 3 weeks. My daughter's friend said to her, "Ha ha, your cat ran away and you deserve it." Our cat then miraculously returned. My daughter texted her, "Hey, I just want to let you know Dexter came back. Something that your dad will never do." Story 2. One of my former friends was very drunk while I was hanging out with her and her then boyfriend. The boyfriend and I were talking about a TV show we liked, and my former friend, becoming increasingly belligerent that the conversation did not revolve around her, screamed that he was a terrible person for ignoring her and that his mother was right to take her own life rather than have to live with him. It became awkward quickly. He offered to drive me home, and in the car he told me his mother had taken her own life and that he had only told my former friend a few days earlier. They broke up shortly after that. Story 3. A long time ago, my boss and the plumbing foreman were in an argument. My boss yelled, "Your wife is like a portable toilet. The hole is smaller and it smells better." I have no idea how he was not murdered with an X. Story 4. My ex-boyfriend told me he hoped my cancer would come back and that I would die. Not even a year later, it did return. I am still undergoing treatment more than a year later, and on my worst days, it is all I think about. Story 5. A girl said to another girl who was in a wheelchair, "You are the only person to lose your legs and your virginity to a train." Story 6. In middle school, a popular girl who used to be my friend made cruel remarks about my weight. I was on the brink of tears when a boy came over and asked if we were talking about the time she fell out of her chair and farted loudly. She started to cry. Felt good. Story 7. The new kid at school mentioned that his mother had died when he was 4. Someone in the classroom said, "Knock, knock." He replied, "Who's there?" The student answered, "Not your mother." Story 8. My first wife was molested by her father repeatedly for over a year when she was 10 years old. A week before I served her divorce papers, I confronted her about cheating on me. During the confrontation, she became very angry and told me that sex with me was the worst and that when I touched her, it reminded her of being raped by her father. Later, she apologized and said it was not true. She said she only wanted to hurt me. Story 9. When my cousin and I were little and arguing, I shouted that at least my mom did not have cancer. It turned out he did not know his mother had terminal cancer because his parents had been trying to hide it from him. Story 10. I worked in construction at one point. At a team meeting, everyone at my company was told that one of our employees, Joe, had gone through a horrible tragedy. He was in a serious car accident and was slightly injured. His wife, who was pregnant with their first child, was severely injured and lost the baby. I do not recall whether she survived. A new guy on the crew asked why Joe had not been at work in a while. One employee, Austin, replied, "I don't know. You should ask his kid." I have never heard a joke in such bad taste. Story 11. My dad pointed at me and said to my mom, "I will never forgive you for giving birth to him." Story 12. A gay man told a straight man that he only spends time with him, so the gay man is not the gayest person in the room. Story 13. Everything everyone says about you is true. I said that to a friend while we were both very drunk, arguing about something trivial. I knew it was a horrible thing to say and I didn't mean it, but the reaction from our friends confirmed it was a very fucked up thing to say, whether I was joking or not. Story 14. This comment section has me switching between fuck yeah and fuck. Story 15. I also have one that was said to me. In high school, my dad was living in a different state for work, so we did not have to uproot our lives and I did not have to start at a different school. He would come home on the weekends, and a group of guys who knew this and who bullied me said, "When your dad comes home, you will probably ask him how to use his gun so you can shoot up the school, but end up killing yourself instead. Absolute trash human beings." Story 16. I was at Christmas, and my brother and sister were fighting. Her boyfriend, who was in his 40s, spoke up and said, "Don't talk to my girlfriend that way." Without missing a beat, my brother replied, "This is none of your business. You're going to be gone next week anyway." You could hear a pin drop. It was a running joke that you could tell which Christmas it was by which boyfriend appeared in the family picture, so we had already expected him not to last. He stammered, "No, I'm not going anywhere." Then my sister started crying. He stuck around for another month and then she broke it off as she had with the others. Story 17. I had a friend who was really struggling mentally. I always texted her and made sure she felt heard, and many of my friends did the same. She started opening up, so I felt comfortable telling her that I had been admitted to a mental hospital some years earlier. I had never told anyone outside my family about that. One night she texted that she did not feel safe, and I was able to convince her to get help. Her parents took her to the hospital, where she spent several weeks in outpatient care. When she returned, we all made sure she had support. Over time, I noticed she became fixated on my mental health, asking when I had cut myself despite my expressed discomfort. A few months later, after an argument in our group chat, she texted everyone that at least she had not been admitted to a mental hospital at the age of 11. I felt betrayed and used, as if I meant nothing to her. Thank God she attends a different high school. Story 18. I was at an Astros game as a kid, and there was a man dressed in a clown costume selling balloon animals. One drunk asked him if he had been abused as a child. When the clown replied yes, the drunk shot back, "It shows. Even as a child, I thought that was a truly awful thing to say to someone." Story 19. In middle school, we had shop class. Some students were being unruly on the other side of the room. The shop teacher went and stopped them because it is not safe to be unruly near power tools. He walked past the table I was at and said that they were the reason for birth control. I do not remember if anyone else heard it, but I laughed. As an adult, it is crazy to me that he said that out loud where 11 to 14-year-olds could hear him. Story 20. A friend bet me that she had thick skin and that nothing I said could upset her. We were walking to a bar and I said I would take that bet. By the time we got to the bar, if I upset her, she would buy me a beer. If not, I would owe her. We shook on it. Before we let go of hands, I said that her sister was hotter. She punched me. She still owes me a beer. Story 21. I was kind of in the wrong too. Someone once showed me their celebrity crush, and I said that I have low standards and even they do not meet them. That person replied that I have low standards because nobody likes me romantically. I brushed it off, but there was some truth to it. We are doing fine, though. Story 22. I once made a "your mom" joke to a new kid at school. Both his parents were dead, unbeknownst to me at the time. Story 23. My partner broke up with me using the words 7 years of wasted time. Story 24. You are not my friend anymore and you cannot come to my birthday party. Toddlers do not like it when you get water in their eyes while bathing them. Story 25. I knew someone in high school. Word spread that he had been sexually abused by his father while growing up, and he was bullied for it. One day 5 students were suspended because this boy was in a stall doing what he needed to do, and those students shut the lights off, played the sound of a baby crying over a speaker, and yelled, "Oh, Daddy, keep touching me." Horrible things like that happened. Later that day, those same kids were beaten badly. I thought it was beautiful and laughed out loud. Everyone talked about it for almost my entire high school career. The boy who was bullied is apparently doing well and is now making 6 figures a year. Story 26. I once told a kid who constantly bullied me that I could tell his parents didn't love him because the back of his head was flat. He looked confused for a second, and I added, "They never gave you tummy time. They hated you from birth." Story 27. I heard someone whose oldest child of 4 was a dropout and a drug addict refer to him as the first pancake. Story 28. In high school, I came 3rd in javelin and someone turned to me and said, "I thought your people were meant to be good at chucking spears. I'm Afro-Scottish." Story 29. This was in the 1990s, so homophobia was common. In 7th grade, a new classmate revealed he had 2 lesbian mothers, his biological mother and her partner. The biological father, a friend who helped conceive the child, was also in his life. They did not live together, but he contributed and supported the child, acting like a father or uncle. He did not tell people directly, but at parent-teacher association meetings and open houses word got out. The bully found out and started the harassment, teasing him that he had two dykes and calling his mother's Ellen, referring to Ellen DeGeneres, who had recently come out. The bully tried to embarrass him, recruit others, and spread rumors. This continued for weeks. One day in social studies class, the classmate had enough and said, "You really have a problem with me having two moms and a dad? Why? Is it because you want one? Or is it because you're a dumbass?" You could see the look on the bully's face. The comment hit a sensitive nerve. It turned out the bully had been living with his grandmother and cousins because his mother was in prison and his father was never in the picture. He had also been held back twice at his previous school before transferring to ours. Story 30. At a high school party, a 17-year-old was being an absolute monster. Drunk, trying to harass girls, and generally disgusting. The party was at his house and everyone was too drunk to drive, so no one could leave. My best friend yelled across the room, "Hey, do you still have the shotgun your dad used to kill himself? I think a bunch of us want to use it to get out of this party." Your dad had the right idea. To this day, I cannot think of another time I have seen such hurt and sorrow in someone's eyes. I felt bad for him, but it turned out better for him. He has since talked to everyone about his behavior in high school and apologized. Story 31. A guy from my high school with a permanent eye injury was trying to convince me and another classmate that he had seen topless pictures of me taken at a party. I was 15 and had never even been to a party, so I asked him, "Which eye did you use to look at them?" Everyone gave that ooh reaction when someone gets burned. I still do not regret it. Story 32. My mom said to me after I told her I did not have enough money to lend her when I was 12 years old, "You know what? Fuck you. I'm glad you got raped." Story 33. I was bullied relentlessly by a classmate in middle school for no reason I can think of other than that we rode at the same stable for horseback riding lessons. We had known each other outside of school before we started attending, and I never understood why we went from friends to enemies. Eventually, the stable closed to private owners. My family could not afford a horse, but hers could, so I had to stop going while she kept attending. She took advantage of that until the day my horse died. He was not legally mine. We had leased him and had to give him up during the policy change. But he was my horse. His name was Skipper. I grew up with him from the time I was 5 years old, and he was extremely dear to me. I could not be there when he passed, but my classmate knew. She told me at school in the hallway before morning classes, in front of everyone, apparently hoping to make me cry. She said, "Your stupid horse is dead." We were about 13. Normally, I probably would have started crying or screamed at her, but this was too far. I was flabbergasted. I do not remember exactly what I said, but I asked, "Did you just tell me my horse died in front of everyone? What is wrong with you? Who acts like that?" Then I left. I barely felt hurt. It just struck me as totally bizarre to be so cartoonishly mean. I do miss Skipper. Big Palooka. I cried about it to my mom later, but because I was sad about him, not because of that girl. Story 34. My wife worked as a paraeducator. The job drove her to the breaking point when she told the worst helicopter parent you can imagine, "The way you parent. It's no wonder your other son killed himself." She did not come to work the next day and was better off for it. Story 35. My brother-in-law quit a hockey pool because one of my buddies told him the only thing your mom misses with is the coat hanger. I laughed my ass off. He was pissed. Story 36. My uncle told me my autistic son was a punishment from God when I came out as bisexual. One of my cousins, who also has a child with special needs, called him and told him off. The uncle tried to apologize a couple of years later, but I cut him out of my life and have not looked back. Story 37. A girl I will call Sarah lost both of her parents at a young age. By high school, she had developed a reputation for being promiscuous. In ceramics class, I tried making a sculpture of a horse with a dolphin tail. I called it a horefin. Someone said horfan? You mean like Sarah? Story 38. I was a competitive equestrian in my youth. I grew up in a rural area but attended a wealthy suburban school. As the poorer, socially awkward kid, I became the class punching bag and was mercilessly bullied. On a class trip to a camp I had attended before, they made fun of me for being a horse girl. One boy planted embarrassing notes he claimed were from me in another boy's bag, making it look like I was a stalker. During the trail ride portion of the week, the kids kept making horse girl jokes, saying it was not hard and that the horse did all the work, and that they would ride circles around me. I was assigned a horse that had been a cutting and reining horse because I was the only one who could ride and had been there before. It was a working ranch in southern Alberta. When my bully tried to get on his horse, the animal started freaking out. He sat frozen in his saddle in total panic. He was terrified of both horses and heights, so the staff had put him on the gentlest horse they had, an oversized draft horse 18 hands and 2 inches high. I rode full barrel racing and cutting turns, literally riding fast, tight circles around him and mocking what he had said, until he was shaking and sobbing, snot running down his face. He had a panic attack and was genuinely terrified. Took hours for the staff to calm him down. Needless to say, this did not make me any more liked, and they continued to bully me for another year. But it did make me feel better at the time. Story 39. When I was 11, I took my friend's phone and wrote to his most recently texted contact, "Yo mama's so fat she died." It turned out the contact was a child with an intellectual disability. His birth mother had died from a drug overdose, and he and his adoptive mother were both morbidly obese. Sorry, dude. Story 40. When I was 18, a rather notable person grabbed my breast. I told my family, and they were rightly horrified. Later, that person became a political force, and my mother, a social worker for women and children who had been abused, told me I should feel honored that such a great man had touched me against my will. I was appalled. She apologized for saying that, but it damaged our relationship. Story 41. One of my platonic friends, who admittedly behaved poorly, said, "At least my dad isn't dead," after we tried to intervene in her heavy drinking. That was a year after I lost my father. Heated words were exchanged, and it took significant intervention from the friend group to reconcile. 2 years later, we are still friends. She has cut back on drinking, and I drew a firm boundary. I would forgive that insult once, but if I heard it again, we would be done. I never heard it again, and she apologized sincerely for months afterward. I value the friendship, but it is better that we not see each other every day. Story 42. My mother told my brother, who had anorexia, "You can just die. I do not care anymore." For those foolish enough to try to excuse her, she is a diagnosed narcissist. She abused us throughout our lives while we lived with her. Please stop excusing her. Story 43. I was in the army, observing a sergeant subject a new private to traditional hazing. The sergeant said something about the private's mother. The private said his mother was dead. The sergeant replied, "I know. I'll dig her up and fuck her to death again." It turned out his mother was actually dead. She had been killed by his father with a hatchet. It did not stop there. The sergeant would call him up at random in front of other non-commissioned officers and make him stand at parade rest and recite the story of how his mother died. Story 44. Once, there was a very annoying girl in my class. She could not keep quiet. We grew tired of it, and I directed a mild insult at her while the teacher was out. The rest of the class chimed in, each comment worse than the last. By the end, she was barely holding together. I still feel sick thinking back to how much I enjoyed the moment. Story 45. In high school, someone was bullying me. We were almost friends, but he could be cruel sometimes, and that got in the way. One day, he was really bothering me, and I blurted out, "This is why your dad does not love you." He responded, "Do not talk about my dad." It turned out that a few years earlier, his father had died in a car accident. The car flipped and the roof was faulty. It was terrible. I felt awful. We made up quickly because I had no idea, but I have felt guilty about that for a long time. Story 46. When I was a kid, my folks were having an argument, and my dorky-ass dad said, "Up your nose with a rubber hose." To which my mom replied, "Up your dick with a pointy stick." That was more than 30 years ago, and it stuck with me. Story 47. My ex hurt me badly. His cousin called to find out information, asking whether I was going to the police. I told her to leave me the hell alone. She then had the audacity to text me that she could take my children until I got my life together. I lost it and replied, "Bitch, the hell do I look like sending my kids to you? You cannot even keep your own children alive." She had 5 children. 3 are dead. It was wrong and I should not have said it. But I had to burn that bridge, or they would never leave me alone. Story 48. During the height of a family fight at a gathering that went badly, my mother shouted, "You deserve to outlive your children," at my aunt, whose son died by suicide. Story 49. I had an ex whose mother was severely disabled. She often had to cancel plans to look after her. When she broke up with me, she told me, "No one is ever going to love you because they will have to take care of you like I have to take care of my mother." I am not physically disabled, but I was severely depressed because I was in an abusive relationship. Hearing that hurt me deeply for a long time. Even now, I feel very sorry for her mother. Story 50. My cousin's 18-year-old daughter died in a car accident. She was not at fault. Her grandmother said that it was karma for when the girl's mother had been in a drunk driving accident and killed a friend in high school. Story 51. Not really an insult. A while ago my friend was joking around and started to say, "Your mama is so." He stopped when he realized the person he was talking to had missed school to attend her mother's funeral about a week earlier. "Go on," she said, looking him dead in the face. He apologized. Story 52. My drunk friends were roasting each other. It all ended when one said to the other, "When you were born, your mom took a shit at the same time. The doctor thought she had twins." The roasted friend was dumbfounded. Story 53. Ginny Sack had a 95-pound mole removed from her buttocks. Story 54. Sorry, I can't help with content that sexualizes minors. Here is a sanitized rewrite suitable for text-to-speech. A brutal insult was aimed at this bully back in grade school, and it was so extreme that none of us in 6th grade had ever heard anything like it before. For years people asked him why he acted that way, and it probably ruined his entire high school experience. Story 55. My former mother-in-law reportedly told my 13-year-old daughter that the best part of her ran down her mother's leg. Thankfully, I was not there to witness it. Otherwise, I would have been in a viral video for beating a defenseless old woman half to death. She has been dead for years, and I still get angry at her every time I think about it. Story 56. Someone told me they understood why I was sexually assaulted as a child and that someone had to put it in my mouth to make me shut up. I was 5. 5-year-olds are supposed to be annoying. As an adult, hearing that made my blood boil. Just say I am irritating. Do not bring my childhood sexual abuse into it. Story 57. I had an art teacher in early high school who was, let's say, portly. She looked like a beach ball with legs. One time I was talking with my friend by the lockers before the bell rang for class when she came walking up to us. I jumped in front of my friend and shouted, "Don't eat him." It was funny at the time, but I felt terrible afterward. I apologized to her after school. Mrs. Armstrong is an amazing woman, and I have never been that mean to anyone since. Story 58. After a close friendship ended badly, we were both outside at a party, alone and smoking. "You must hate me." Actually, I don't think about you at all. I didn't think it was insulting, and that apparently made it so much worse. 15 minutes later, I was being asked what I had said and why she was crying in the bathroom. Story 59. You Vienna sausage-dicked moron. Story 60. My cousin's mother took out his Head Start graduation picture and said, "I should have taken more pictures, since that is the only graduation you will ever have." Story 61. For context, my mother-in-law passed away a few years ago. I am the mother of 2 girls, and my mother is alive. My girls know the game Never Have I Ever, and with them it is innocent, like never have I ever been X years old or never have I ever gone to X school. On the way to the store, something prompted me to say, "Never have I ever." So we started playing. It was my youngest daughter's turn and she said, "Never have I ever had my mom die. Burn, Dad. You have to put a finger down." My husband and I looked at each other, shocked and amused. He put a finger down. When it was my daughter's next turn, she said, "I'm sorry to you know who. Never have I ever had fake teeth." We tried to figure out who she was apologizing to. Grandma? Grandpa? No, George Washington. To recap, it's okay to lay a sick burn on your dad over something he had no control over, but you must apologize to someone who died more than 200 years ago. Story 62. I do not even know what they were fighting about. My father told his half-sister that she could not judge him for what he was doing because she had not been able to keep her child alive. Her son had been killed as a teenager in a hit and run. I learned this by chance. My father's father, not the woman's father but the man her mother had an affair with, revealed during an argument that the man she had been named after was not her biological father. She was in her 50s and had not known until then. I learned about that because she changed her name. Also, my father's father had once killed someone in a hit and run himself but got off scot-free because he was well connected with some lawyers. Of all the people she could have learned that from, he was the worst. My father's family is really not right, I feel. Story 63. I was teasing my younger brother about being a goofball a couple of years ago. I said he was a total goofball. He replied that I was not even his real sister. I am adopted, so that hurt really badly. I do not know if this can be considered an insult, but it felt like one. Story 64. The worst insult was not an insult at all. I used to hang out at the Maplewood Mall a lot. There was a girl who used to haunt the smoking area, with red carpet and brick back then and all the plants. We all gathered there because it was outside the Circus Pizza arcade. She was ugly, beyond ugly, stomach-churning ugly. We were friends, I guess. But this was well over 35 years ago, and I cannot remember her name anymore. I cannot really remember her face now either, but I remember part of her face looked watery, like slushy ice. One day she broke down and started crying. She said, I can understand when people look at me and are grossed out. I get that. But when they look through me, like I do not even exist, that hurts more than any insult. It is mean. It is so mean. What do you say when you are 8 or 10? Then it hit me that people would walk around her, look past her, ignore her. The worst insult that went too far was when she was sitting there and asked someone what time it was outside the arcade. The person glanced, did a double take, and answered her while looking away. Then I understood. I will look. I will stare. I might even leer, but I will never ignore. I always remember that the worst thing you can do to a human is to treat them like they do not exist. If someone is ugly, notice them. Do anything but ignore them. There is nothing crueler than pretending they do not exist. If you have large breasts and nice legs, I promise I will notice. A man dressed in a skirt and fishnet stockings with a cheese wedge hat, I promise I will notice you. I promise I will notice. Story 65. I once overheard someone say, "You're a waste of space. I don't know why anyone puts up with you." That remark felt like it crossed a line. It wasn't just mean. It was deeply personal and unnecessary. Insults like that go far beyond a petty argument and really hurt someone's sense of self-worth. It's hard to recover from words like that. Story 66. It must have been a sad day when you slithered out of the abortion bucket. Story 67. My boyfriend told me about a time he said to his mother, "I wish I had never been born." And she replied, "Yes, me too." Story 68. When I was 13, a friend was razzying me about something. It was not that big a deal, but I was racking my brain for a comeback. And the first thing that popped into my head was to turn to him deadpan and ask, "How does it feel knowing no one will ever love you?" He definitely stopped razzying me. Story 69. I joined the school choir in 5th grade because my parents did not have the money for a band instrument. I did not like it because I did not have a singing voice. I quit 3 months later. My music teacher said, "If you quit, you will never amount to anything in life." I was 10 years old. What on earth would you say that to me? I was furious with Mr. Dancy. Story 70. Here comes the boss now. Tell him to his face, you pussy. Totally out of nowhere. The man had never said a word about the boss or anyone else. It was just a provocation. The boss was shocked and asked for an explanation. The poor man turned every color of the rainbow, spluttering and insisting he had said nothing. Of course, the boss did not believe him and held it against him from that day on. Even though we backed him up, it was just a bad joke at both their expense. Story 71. When I was 14, I was at a residential treatment center for mental health problems. I had two roommates, John and Hayden, and we shared a three-person bedroom. John did not have any friends there except me. One night Hayden said to John, "Nobody likes you, John. That's why your mom died of cancer and your brother shot himself in front of you." To this day, that is the most cruel and heartless thing I have ever heard. Story 72. I had to put down my dog. She was that special dog who meant more than I could express. Her health took a very sudden turn, and after being told she had cancer, I had to decide to end her suffering within 3 weeks. So I did not have time to prepare. I was a mess and cried that day. My girlfriend at the time was angry that I canceled our plans, and she snapped that it was just a stupid mutt, that I was being a coward and should be a man, or she would find a real one. I hung up on her. She went out partying, hooked up with a man that night, and flaunted to me that she had found a real man. I was done. I had intended to end the relationship because of her comment anyway. The joke was ultimately on her. She apparently became pregnant that night, and the man left before the child was born. That was 3 years ago. Story 73. At a small local wrestling event, there was a character named Azazel, a demon figure, and we all heckled the wrestlers. It was part of the fun. But one time someone yelled, "Yeah, Azazel, kick his ass, unleash the fury of your weird, made-up nerdy hell fantasy." And that really broke the fourth wall and was a little too far. Story 74. My father told me that I would never find happiness in life. Story 75. I was hanging out with some friends in college when someone pointed at me and said, "Talk to him. He's the chemistry nerd." I replied, "Yup, I'm not interested in anything bigger than 20 microns." Someone I had met before but wasn't close with, without skipping a beat, said, "That explains why he masturbates so much. It wasn't that bad." In hindsight, I laugh about it. Story 76. I heard a group of girls arguing at a party. One of them looked the other in the face and said, "You know, every guy you fuck, you say his dick is too small? It is not the hot dog's fault that it cannot fit in a hallway." Alicia. They fought after that. I was laughing out loud. Story 77. In middle school, a boy was picking on me. He hurled insults and threw a basketball that struck my head. I went back to class very upset. My teacher at the time, who for some reason seemed to like me, asked what was wrong. I cried as I told him. He said, "It's okay now. Big brother's got him." He called the principal and had the boy suspended. The boy never picked on me again. I will never forget that teacher or what he did for me. Story 78. I was playing basketball in the high school gym at lunch with other students. I was a pretty good player, but at that moment I had missed 15 to 20 shots in a row. I attacked the rim for a layup and missed that too. I made finger gun gestures and mimed shooting myself in the head. Someone yelled, "Missed again." Story 79. I was in 4th grade. A group of us were playing Uno when the topic turned to "Yo mama" jokes. Nothing personal, just the usual. Then one kid turned to me and said, "Yo mama's so ugly. She looks just like you." That broke me. It was the first and only insult I ever let get to me. They apologized by giving me all the good cards the next round. That still hurt. Story 80. A roommate who was moving out hit another roommate's car. The other roommate immediately ran out the front door and called the driver a gaping goat cunt. Story 81. I told a creepy boy, "This is why your mom doesn't love you," after he harassed me and other girls again as a joke. I had seen his mother once and could tell she had no interest in him. She had diamonds and other signs of wealth, while he only had a few pairs of boxers. He had a full breakdown, and the other guys there began to fear me. I'm not proud of it. As an adult, I would probably handle it differently. The adults around us dismissed his harassment as "boys will be boys" or said, "You girls are attractive." That makes it hard for a teen like him. So there seemed to be no other way to defend myself and the others unless I pushed him to a breakdown. Story 82. I was talking to my friend and she jokingly said she was irritated with me. I laughed because I knew I hadn't done anything to irritate her that day. It was still early and I told her to give me time. I asked what I had done now. She scoffed and said my existence is what bothers her. I knew she was joking, But it hurt my feelings, and I have not really talked to her in a few weeks. She has not apologized, and I think she believes I am being dramatic, which maybe I am, but it genuinely hurt me. As someone whose relationship with existence is tenuous at best, and who she knows this about, it was not a good thing to hear. Story 83. Someone once told a friend they were the human version of a participation trophy. That is savage and unwarranted. Story 84. I was riding in a car with a bunch of friends, and one of their dads was driving. The dad said something to aggravate my friend, so my friend called him a motherfucker. All of us were quite shocked and waited for his dad to erupt with anger. Without hesitation, the dad looked over at his son and said, "You better be glad I am." We all burst out laughing. My friend could not come up with a response and sat there pouting. Story 85. After our breakup, my narcissistic and aggressive ex sent a desperate, unhinged message containing profane accusations that my mother was arranging sexual exploitation for profit. Story 86. When I am playing Defense of the Ancients 2, I tell opposing players that I heard their mother makes mediocre pizza rolls. Story 87. A drill instructor and a recruit. The recruit requested a new clothes hanger from the drill instructor because his hanger had broken. The drill instructor responded, "You can take this hanger on one condition. If you go back in time 9 months before your birth, give it to your mother and tell her to just do the right thing." The recruit's eyes widened in fear. It made me sick to my stomach to hear someone say something so cruel. Story 88. When I was in school, my mom had cancer and was given a year to live. She beat all odds and lived 17 years, passing this past February. A kid looked me in the eye and said, "I hope your mom died of cancer. I regret not breaking his nose." Story 89. One I've heard that crossed the line was when someone said, "You'll never make it. You're just a failure pretending to be successful." It's the kind of thing that not only attacks someone's work but also their self-worth, and it can really hit hard when someone is already struggling with confidence. Story 90. The yo mama joke that went too far. Your mum is attractive. I would be interested in her. Yes, your mum was attractive too, but she has passed away. Story 91. In a fight with my now ex, she said she hoped I would die alone and be afraid of having a heart attack on the kitchen floor like my grandmother. Story 92. Your mother was a scullery maid, and your father smelled of elderberries. You silly knight. Story 93. My first girlfriend and I decided together to terminate a pregnancy. We were both 18 and living at my parents' house. We were not responsible or financially capable enough to have a baby. About a year later, I decided she was not the right one for me and broke up with her. In response, she sent me a long message that ended with, "I am glad I aborted any chance of a future we had." She was heartbroken, mourning the relationship, which must have felt horrible. Still, that was very hurtful of her. Story 94. I was close friends with a boy at school. He lived just down the road from my parents and me. Over summer break, right after his mother gave birth to his younger sister, his father died in his sleep from a previously unknown cardiac condition. Things got very difficult. School resumed, and a few months later another boy kept harassing us at our lunch table. He tried to steal food, called names. He loved calling me short shit, and yanked our seats out from under us. One day, as usual, he reached for my tray and I jabbed at his hand with a fork. My friend finally asked him what his problem was. The boy told him that his father had committed suicide because he was a disappointment and his parents had another baby to replace him. All the months of hurt inside my friend came out at once. He broke the boy's jaw and fractured some ribs by slamming him into the tables. The bully was expelled for his safety. My friend received a week of suspension. Story 95. Playing League of Legends. A player on my team said, "Good game, easy." A player on the enemy team said, "Is that what your dad says before he touches you?" I spit out my drink. Story 96. My mother-in-law got mad when I would not remodel the house her son bought her. She told me, "What would your mother think of you? My mother died of cancer a few years ago." Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.